Hello guys, today we will start with the Edwardian Age and the First World War. Edward VII came to the throne in 1901 when Queen Victoria died, and he reigned until 1910. It was a period of of more social reforms, especially in favor of the children. The Children's Charter of 1906 followed a series of other reforms in favor of children that were passed during the Victorian Age. First of all, in 1833, the Factory Act that had limited the hours of children in factories to not more than 48 hours per week, and also the Education Act of 1870, with which elementary education for all children became compulsory, obligatory. The Children's Charter of 1906 established a series of laws to defend the rights of children, and in particular it was established that there had to be a regular medical inspection in schools, that free meals were given to all the poor children, and children were banned from public houses, so it was forbidden for them to drink alcohol, and they were also forbidden to beg, di elemosinare. Something also important happened starting from 1903. In fact, in this year, Mrs. Emmeline Pankhurst founded an important movement, the Women's Social and Political Union, to bring about the universal suffrage, a true universal suffrage for all women. This movement was very violent. In fact, women chained themselves to railings and also spit at policemen and broke windows. And when they were arrested, they acted some hunger strikes, scioperi della fame. So they were very violent. And in fact, in 1918, they got the vote for women aged 30 and over. But a true universal suffrage for all women was got only in 1928, where when actually all women were allowed to vote. In 1910, George V came to the throne after the death of Edward VII, and he reigned until 1936. There were the terrible years of the First World War that broke out in 1914, and that saw two sets of countries opposed to each other. On one side, the Triple Alliance between Germany, Italy, and Austria, and on the other side, the Triple Entente between France, England, and Russia. At the beginning, the youth saw this the war as heroic adventure, but in fact the war was completely different, also because of the use of the new war machines. There were millions there were a series of victims, and among these new war machines there were the shells, le granate, and the shell shock was the name of a psychological disorder that doctors gave to a psychological disorder following the end of the war for the soldiers that had come back home alive. The war ended only in 1918 with the Peace Treaty of Versailles, and the American President Wilson created the idea of a League of Nations aiming at forbidding other world wars and at trying to solve the differences, the problems and the differences between the different nations in a peaceful way. But in the end, the Senate, the American Senate, voted against the joining of America in the League of Nations. Well, now, as for the Irish question, during the First World War, Ireland started a rebellion in the so-called Easter Monday, 1916, a rebellion to get its own independence from Great Britain. But the rebellion was crushed by Britain, and the leaders of the rebellion were sentenced to death. And for this reason, they became a sort of heroes. In 1918, during the elections for the Parliament, for the election of the members in Westminster Parliament in Britain, the Sinn Féin party, the Irish Sinn Féin party won the majority of seats, but instead of sending the new elected people in Westminster Parliament, they founded the Irish Parliament, that was the Dáil. And again, they self-proclaimed the independence of Ireland. That wasn't recognized at all by Britain, and so in 1919 there was the birth of the Irish Republican Army and the beginning of a civil war. Started in Easter 1920. It was won by Ireland, and it led to the birth of the Irish Free State in 1921. Ulster, that is the northern part of Ireland that you can see in this picture, remained part of the United Kingdom. But the true proclamation of the independent Republic of Ireland, as we can see today in this in the picture, this represents represents Ireland today, goes back to 1949, when there was the birth of the Republic of Ireland, while with capital city Dublin, while in the north, the Northern Ireland, also called Ulster, stayed as a part of the United Kingdom with the capital city Belfast. Now, let's talk about the Second World War. George V died, and he was succeeded by his son Edward VIII. But Edward VIII loved an American divorced woman, that was Wallis Simpson, and that couldn't be accepted by the public opinion, and for this reason he chose love, and he was forced to abdicate, and George VI, his brother, got the throne, and took the power between 1936 and 1952. The terrible years of the Second World War followed. In 1939, the Second World War broke out, and at the beginning there were a series of successes, of war successes for Germany. In fact, there was Poland and Belgium surrendered to Germany, and then Holland and Norway. and in June 1940 even France surrendered to Germany. But then something happened that would turn the results the following years of the war. First of all, the great mistakes that was done by Hitler when he tried to occupy the USSR, that stands for Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, that was a failure, and in 1943 Germany was forced to surrender. And in 1941 the intervention of America in the war. That followed the air attack to Pearl Harbor from the Japanese. So America entered the war and gradually completely changed the destiny of the war. In 1944 there was the landing in Normandy and the famous D-Day, that was the delivery day when America started to liberate Europe. And in 1945 there was the final German surrender as a consequence of that followed Hitler's suicide. In 1945 the American President Truman took a very important decision, that was the dropping of 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to force the Japanese to surrender. And they got their effect, and all the countries such as America, Australia, New Zealand, and all the British colonies that helped Britain during the Second World War wanted a reward, un premio, as a consequence of their intervention in the war and of their support of their former mother country. And they wanted their independence, and so they gradually got their freedom and became members of the Commonwealth of Nations, that is a collection of ex-British countries all over the world that have some political and economical relationship with the former mother country, that is Britain, but that have got their own political independence. That's all for today. Goodbye. See you at school.